What's going on, Johnny Nation? Welcome to episode 182 of the Eye of the Storm podcast. My name is David Barrow, and St. John's did it again. Down 16 points in the second half. St. John's never said die. Just like the game against Seton Hall, St. John's used rebounding and defense to fuel the comeback. Just like the game against Seton Hall, St. John's needed Dillon Mitchell and Bryce Hopkins to step up, with Zubie Ejiofor not as effective as his usual self due to foul trouble. And just like Seton Hall, when it was crunch time and the game was in the balance, Dylan Darling and his balls as big as church bells stepped up and made sure the Red Storm were going home with the victory. A furious comeback on the road made it 6 wins in a row for the Johnnies as they knock off the Xavier Musketeers and his son Richard to give Rick Pitino win number 900 thanks to an 88-83 final, moving Coach Pitino into 4th place all time in college basketball. And while there are many parallels to that Seton Hall outcome, there was one big difference in this game. And that was that St. John's needed the high-powered offense of their own to keep pace with Richard Pitino's squad. Trey Carroll, who is one of the best players in the conference, as you've heard me mention on this podcast all season, was unstoppable to the tune of 31 points. So while St. John's needed excellent defense in the second half, as well as grit and guts to come back, just like they did against Seton Hall, against Xavier, they needed excellent defense, but they also needed 56% shooting in the second half. They needed 50% from three to make sure that Xavier and their high-powered offense didn't play spoiler to Rick Pitino's milestone. Justin, I am not sure if you've caught your breath yet following that insane win, but if you ask me, the winter storm Fern that we are sitting through right now as we speak is nothing compared to the red storm that have shown up this winter.
We are starting to see a team that's getting an identity. You're starting to see a team that can beat you multiple ways, which we did not have the chance to say much last year. Last year, they were going to beat you with defense and grit and offensive rebounds. Now, obviously, we're starting to see that this year, but they can beat you by outscoring you. They can beat you by wearing you down in the second half. They can beat you on the glass. I mean, they can win in a lot of different ways. And when you're going to come back on the road against an offensively gifted team like Xavier, you need to win in different ways. And while the two games against Seton Hall and Xavier mirror each other in many ways with the big second half comeback, I also think that Xavier and Seton Hall are two very, very different teams. And it's almost reassuring that they're able to do this not only at home, but on the road against one team which is very, very good defensively. Seton Hall's defense is spectacular. They're offensively challenged in many ways, but their defense is top notch. And the flip side, Xavier can't really guard you, but they can score the basketball. And your boy Trey Carroll put out a performance yesterday, which was unlike anything I think I had ever seen. And kudos to him. He is a great basketball player that took a team on his back and almost picked up a win against the St. John's team, which will undoubtedly be ranked in the top 25 come Monday. That being said, the better team won this basketball game.
At one point in the second half, when Trey Carroll, I believe, hit that step back three right in Ruben Prey's face to cut the lead, I think from 5-2 for Xavier. I think Grant Hill said, "Hey, I don't know what his NIL is, but I think he needs a raise." And listen, Richard Pitino cut that man a check. I don't even know. It's he whatever he's getting. I mean, give him an in-season raise. He's unbelievable. What he was doing yesterday in the first half, in the second half, one of the best performances I've seen against St. John's in a very long time. And, you know, there's plenty of memes out there on the internet about, hey, I'm going to tell my kid this is so-and-so. You couldn't tell that kid that's Michael Jordan out there, because holy cow, the way that he took over and put Xavier on his back. And he's been doing that all season for Xavier. But He was incredible yesterday. Kudos to St. John's for being able to withstand a 31-point performance on the road in a hostile environment with all the extracurricular storylines kind of going into it. Obviously, Rick versus his son, but also 900 hanging in the balance. And thought it was funny before the game. Richard Pitino tweeting, I think like 2 days before, saying, "How amazing is it that I'm going for win number 258 against my father? How lucky can I be?" or something like that. That was funny. Richard is the absolute best, and just an amazing game. We'll get into it here, but uh, Justin, I mean, Trey Carroll was phenomenal for everything going into the game, the pressure, and even all like the weather nonsense, all like the stuff that you're talking about, the game being moved up an hour because you're hoping that the team can get in and out of Cincinnati. There was a lot like in this game, and the last thing anybody wanted to deal with is a loss to Xavier, a loss to your son, a loss on number 900, and then you could potentially get stuck in Cincinnati for 3 days.
It's funny when they changed the start of the game. I said, is this going to affect St. John's, their ability to execute on the road in a place that they have traditionally not played well at all? They've had some real battles at the Cintas Center. But ironically, they came out on fire yesterday. Ian Jackson took over the game in the first 10 minutes. And so my concerns were a little bit alleviated when they got off to the hot shooting start, hitting 6 of 8 at one stretch and really just kind of bludgeoning Xavier with their offense. But credit to the Musketeers for hanging around, and not only hanging around, but then taking the lead themselves, because they were matching St. John's with their firepower, especially as it got deeper into the first half. But I was worried about a slow start, and instead there was a little bit of a lull at the back end of the first half.
Win number 900 for Rick Pitino came as dramatic as possible. Justin, the frenetic pace of this game, I don't think that is something that we've really seen too much this year. It was so chaotic. And St. John's and their lack of defense, but also credit to Xavier's shot making, put them in a 49-37 hole at halftime. And you bring up Ian Jackson, I think it's an important thing to talk about. Against Seton Hall, Ian Jackson had a donut. And coming off of a Villanova game, he was phenomenal with the 18 points, the way he was scoring. And then you saw that Ian Jackson come back against Xavier. And what Rick Pitino said after the Seton Hall game was that it wasn't an Ian Jackson type of a game. And then you see the pace pick up and the back and forth, and especially in the first half, and Ian Jackson is otherworldly Ian Jackson. But then in the second half, he's gone. Which, thank God for Dylan Darling and his balls as big as church bells. But and Ian deserves a lot of credit because, like, listen, without Ian Jackson, you're in a much bigger hole than 12 points at the half on the road. It's just weird. I mean, Ian Jackson's been a super enigma this season. You're seeing such flashes of really, really good playmaking, and then just vanishes.
St. John's does not win this game without Ian Jackson's first half yesterday. They would not have been down 12. They probably would have been down close to 20, all other things being equal, because of the play. Ian Jackson, and I said it to my dad, I was sitting next to him watching the game. Every shot Ian Jackson took was going in that first half. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, he's got the green light of green lights. He can keep shoot. I don't care if he shoots from 60 feet out. He can shoot until he misses. Like, I really didn't care. That's how much he was feeling it. And then once he missed the shot, I don't know if the confidence left or whatnot, but the turnovers started picking up. And again, they don't win the game without him. But it was a tale of two halves in the sense that they needed his offensive firepower in the first half, but they needed Dylan Darling's grit and simple desire to win this game in the second half. It really was a tale of two halves in that sense.
At like the 11-minute mark in the second half, Ian Jackson took a three, missed, and that's it. He was gone.
Yes.
I rewatched the second half, just really trying to figure out if like Ian did something to not be on the court or just why he wasn't so effective. And I just don't think it's one of those things that has a deeper meaning. I mean, it was Dylan Darling was needed in that moment. He was obviously not scared of the moment, and we're going to go deep onto Dylan Darling in a bit. But the biggest thing, and I'm going to say this again and again, Dylan Darling was unafraid of the moment, but he was such a calming presence in a game that was anything but calm. From the absolute garbage referee calls throughout the entire game to Trey Carroll's shot making to Borovichinen's. Oh no, I'm usually really good with names. Borovichinen's 3-point shot making, Milicevic. I mean, can I get some more eaches in there? Like, what the hell's happening here? But seriously, these guys were really, really good for Xavier, but there was so much happening in these games. Messina Moore was really good in this game, but Darling kept everything at bay. When he came in, it was such a like typical point guard on the floor where he would just settle things down. And he was able to shift the pace a little bit when he needed to. He pressed on that gas pedal. But overall, the biggest thing that you saw in with his impact on the game, besides the shot making, I think, was he calmed the waters when things really could have gotten out of hand.
I mentioned how they don't win this game without Jackson and his scoring in the first half, but they absolutely do not win this game without Dylan Darling's performance in the second half. Put the calming presence aside for a second. He hit 4 of 8 from the field, three of the biggest threes all season. And by the way, kudos to him. We were killing him. I mean, killing him on this podcast earlier in this season when he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. And now it's almost like the guy doesn't miss, and not only not miss, but he's hitting these shots.
It's because he's got balls as big as church bells that are used as flotation devices. Dylan Darling is the freaking mayor of New York right now. What an absolute stud. And all 11 points in the second half.
Give the man a key to the city.
Church bells, Justin. Church bells.
Give the man a key to the city. But not only is it the offensive presence, it's that, again, that calming presence that all of a sudden they need either to get to the basket or they need to hit a big shot, and he's just there. They need to stop on the defensive end. And again, I was criticizing his defense earlier this season because I thought he was a step slow. Obviously, he's not the biggest guard, but he plays that that bulldog style of defense. Reminds me a lot of those pit teams about 15 years ago under Jamie Dixon, where those guards would just absolutely crush you and almost
the Vance
take your will out.
Fields.
Oh, names that just God, and they would just get them over and over. But he's in that mold, just tough, tough, tough. And when they needed a stop, he would get one. And of course, again, those big threes. Dylan Darling is turning himself into not just a rotation piece, but the last 2 games, an integral piece of this team.
Yeah, we're going to get more into Dylan Darling and the sound from Mitchell and Pitino here in a bit. Talk about the frenetic pace, Justin. I mean, my goodness, the St. John's starts 5 of 7 from the floor. Ian Jackson's got 11 of St. John's first 18 points. He's 4 of 4 from the floor. He's got 2 threes. But Xavier started really hot too. They were 12 of 18 from the floor to start, 4 triples, and it really was a complete antithesis to the Seton Hall game where the offense was plentiful, but what happened was similarly as the second half played out differently too. But in the first half, there's a 241 scoring drop for St. John's. They missed 7 shots. They go 1 of 9. And then Xavier goes on an 11-2 run. Johnny's defense was just slow and, just couldn't get out in front of their guys. And, you're kind of throwing your hands up a little bit. You're frustrated, but Justin, I'm curious if your kind of brain was wired the same that mine was at the half, because 4 days prior, they could just look back on that. They could pull back from the way that they fought against Seton Hall. And that's why after that game, the talking points was, man, they won in a very different way that they have all season. And now they can use that for the rest of the year. And Rick Pitino can point to that for the rest of the year. And sure enough, 4 days later and a half later, Rick can point to that. And so you knew that this game wasn't over and that there was plenty of, time left, but you needed to see it. But I just don't think that there was that, mindset where, crap, the game's over, because they just came back and proved that they can dig in deep and they can fight and they do have the guts to come back like last year's team.
I don't think they thought the game was over, and obviously they didn't because they came out and won. But this is two games in a row where they find themselves really in a hole going into the second half. And I said the difference in this game was that they're on the road, and they're on the road in a place that's not that easy to play. I did think the first 2 or 3 minutes of the second half were really going to kind of dictate whether or not they were going to make a run like this. And I was wrong in the sense that Xavier was really going kind of toe to toe with St. John's to start the second half. But then I want to say with about 17 and a half minutes left, all of a sudden the light bulb went on and St. John's went on again, one of those runs where Xavier looked like they could not stop St. John's,
Yeah.
and St. John's was going to the basket at will. It wasn't like they were burying threes. They were just going inside and either drawing a foul or hitting a layup on every single play.
It was similar to the Seton Hall game in the sense that, as soon as you come out of the half, Xavier hit two buckets right away to
Yes.
push that lead. And you're like, oh my God, you can't be serious. And, against Seton Hall, I think it was 8 points. I think it was 6 points or 8 points. And then against Xavier, it was already 12. And they push it to 15 and they push it. And you're like, oh my God, here we go again. But that's where, he called timeout and quickly Hopkins and Mitchell each got back-to-back buckets by themselves. And the Johnnies went on an 18-3 run in about 6 minutes. So, like, again, it was almost exactly the same as Seton Hall. It was like a 6 minute stretch where they just flipped a switch. That included a 16-1 run that got them back to 56-55 before Trey Carroll made a sick fadeaway in the corner. They held Xavier to scoreless from the floor for about 6 minutes. They missed seven straight shots in that little section. That's where Zubie Ejiofor really made a mark in this game. And again, he was in foul trouble again for a second straight game, but he had a 6-0 run by himself that really pushed and propelled St. John's to get back into it, obviously, as well as Hopkins and Mitchell. But that run, again, was just so indicative to the fight that this team is showing now in back-to-back games. It was really impressive on the road. Again, you're down 15 freaking points. It was, it's a moment where no matter who you're playing, especially against an offense like Xavier, they could have buried you on the road. You could, if you didn't make some of those really tough shots, if you didn't fight for those rebounds, if they didn't lock in on defense and make it one possession trips down the court by Xavier, they could have been run out of the building, and they didn't. And they deserve so much credit, just like they did the game before.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like glass half full, glass half empty. On the one hand, you're starting to see these runs like last year where they just dig in. And I don't expect them to play with that kind of intensity for 40 minutes. I think it's damn near impossible. But I want to turn it back to you. Why do you think they're getting into these situations now that they're getting down 12 or 15 points against teams that are just inferior? Like, I get it. I get it. You can't play with the same intensity for 40 minutes in a game that's not the national championship. So I respect that. But why are they falling behind?
I I don't know. It's just inconsistency. Like it's not about not playing hard. You don't see them getting lax. You saw some really poor rotations, I think, on 3-point attempts in the first half against Xavier. Guys were being a little slow to their spot. The fouls, I think, are taking things out of them being as aggressive as they could be. But I think this is just one of those things where you take a cue from Rick Pitino. It's like you got to give credit to the other team and making some tough shots. Xavier was really good. I mean, in that first half, they shot 50% from the floor. They shot 50% from three. When you make 7 threes in a half, that's gonna carry you. And for St. John's in that first half, they only went to the line 8 times and they missed four. That always takes wind out of your sails. They only made 3 threes, so you're down 3-7 on three makes. That's just where you got to credit the other team. But in the second half, and that's what Dillon Mitchell said. Dillon Mitchell, who scored 12 points in the second half, was a huge catalyst to get St. John's on that run. He said that, listen, we've shown it, we've got guts, but we can't let this happen again.
I mean, it talks a lot about the culture we have, what we practice every day, just our mindset as a team. I mean, we were down big. It's 2 games in a row now where we've been down big, and we know we got to get back to practice, and we got to put together 40 minutes consistently, but it shows a lot about who we are as a team, who we are as players, who we are as coaches, where we don't ever give up. I mean, we're going to keep going no matter what the score is, and happily we got it done 2 times in a row now. But we can't let it happen again, for sure.
So, Justin, I mean, one of the best players on the team, somebody that's been absolutely phenomenal in Dillon Mitchell, even says that, like, listen, we know it's a problem, and we can't let it happen again.
Dillon Mitchell didn't let it happen, at least with his performance. He was doing his best free safety impression, picking off balls and then going the distance for a pick six. It was beautiful to watch. Dillon Mitchell is turning into one of, if not maybe one of the top 2 players on this team. He is impacting this game in so many different ways. And again, it's not his ability to score the basketball in and of itself, but 17 points, 7 boards, 6 assists, 4 steals. I mean, just Dom Pointer like efficiency all across the stat sheet. He has been the catalyst. And the reason I think that he is so good is he's a smart basketball player. He's experienced, but he does things at 6'8" that other players simply cannot do because they can't match up with him athletically. He is a gifted athlete who is really, as captain, kind of helping take this team under his wing and form it in his own image and likeness, because you can't not play hard when you have him and Zubie killing themselves on every possession.
In back-to-back games, Dillon Mitchell, 34 points, 18 rebounds, 7 assists, 6 steals.
And this is why he's on NBA radars now, because they realize that this guy is a generational talent when it comes to athleticism, smarts, and his ball handling, which is like watching Magic Johnson, the way he used to just bring the ball up at will as a 6'9" guard.
3 last games for Dillon Mitchell. He's almost at 15 points per game, almost at 10 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, and extrapolate that over the 6-game winning streak. His numbers are about the same, just a tick less on the points. He has flipped this season on its head. I said this on the Seton Hall game recap. He has flipped this entire season, and Rick Pitino throws him into the starting lineup, but more than that is he's using him for everything. He played every minute of the second half. So did Bryce Hopkins, who was absolutely phenomenal as well. We'll get to him in a second. But Dillon Mitchell played 19 minutes in the first half and played 20 minutes in the second half. He sat for a minute. He doesn't
get tired.
He's
like the Energizer Bunny. He just doesn't. Again, it's that athleticism and his motor. We always talk about Zubie's motor. Dillon Mitchell has the same type of energy and just can impose his will deep into games. And I think that's part of the reason they're having this success in the second half, because they don't get tired. Other teams wear down and they just pummel you into submission.
Justin, we've been talking privately off the podcast about this team, the correlations to last season, how Mitchell is the Kadari Richmond of the team, how Zubie has taken another step up, but he's still like your anchor on this team. You're seeing flashes now from Ian Jackson being a dynamic off the dribble threat with Mitchell and Hopkins, and now Darling off the bench and Zubie. You're seeing just a really complete team, I think, start coming together. And Yeah, it makes everybody who doubted this team or was talking junk about this team early on look silly. But I think the way that this team is coming together and with the obviously improved offense, again, I'm going to bring up the ceiling on this team. And the way that these two wins and how they speak to what they're able to do, I think it raises the ceiling so much because when you know what hits the fan in March, mid March, late March, this team has proven now, like you said, not only just at home, but on the road in a hostile environment, in different game conditions, that they can get it done. And kudos to the staff. Kudos to these players for not getting down after some of these pretty tough losses early on. It's been wildly impressive, this 6 game winning streak, and nothing more than these last 2 wins.
I am not for a second suggesting that this team should be ranked fifth in the country as we sit here on what, January 25th. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is there's a reason why they were ranked fifth to start the season. Now, again, nobody wants to hear this because, again, I'm not making excuses. I'm just being honest. They lost games that, in retrospect, they should have won, or at least, as we look back, would have been really nice to win. But by the same token, it takes time, even with the masterful Rick Pitino at the helm, it takes time for games and teams to gel. Rick Pitino's teams have traditionally played their best basketball in February, March, and that is why he's gone to 7 Final Fours. It's not because he had the best team, but he had the best team in March, and he was able to make these runs. And you're starting to see a team that was projected to be all world starting to come together by beating you in different ways, not losing games on the road, showing their toughness and their grit. And so, yeah, again, I don't think they should be ranked fifth, but the ceiling is through the roof with these guys. And partially because they can beat you in so many different ways. They can lock you down defensively. They can turn you over. They can hit shots. And again, you don't know which team you're going to get on a given day, but there's so many different ways to win that you almost go into the bag of tricks and say, what do we need today to get the W? And that's what they're doing. And that's what's so exciting. They're tough to hold down because whether it's the defense getting locked in the second half or whether it's shooting 38% from three like they did against Xavier, they can just beat you in so many different ways.
There's a buy-in happening, I think. And I'm not saying that they didn't before, but I think when you buy in and see the fruits of your labor, I think it just brings everything home. You start to feel all the times that I got screamed at in practice by Rick Pitino. Oh, okay, I get it now. All the times that he stressed certain messages. Okay, I get it now. The message at halftime, the message when they were down 15, wasn't similar, though, to Seton Hall. It was a different one on the road. Against Seton Hall, Rick said basically treat it like an NCAA tournament game, win and you're out, or you'll never see each other again. This one was a little bit different. Here's Rick.
A little different because it's the road. I stayed very calm and said, no doubt my mom will going to come back. Just one possession at a time. We've got to stop the three. And we did at the end, except the one play he made. But we did a good job in the second half of defending the three.
Rick knows that he's got to balance the messages out. I think like I said before, I think that they pulled from that Seton Hall game just in the ability of, I'm not giving up on these guys. Now, every coach is going to say that. But when it's so fresh in your mind, it's right there that you have such an easy way to prove to your guys that you're not out of it. And that second half, I mean, Justin, there was run after run after run. St. John's gets back into it with a huge run. Xavier answers with a 7-0 run. I mean, we talked about this a few times that like on the road, whether it was in Vegas, whether it was against Villanova, there were runs. And St. John's has done such a great job of answering their runs because they would answer a 7-0 run with a 17-6 run over the next 6 minutes. It's It's so commendable, and I think we sound like a broken records, but man, it's fun to watch this during a six game winning streak. But to see that happening in real time, to see this team just kind of feeling it, a 17-6 run followed after a an 18-3 run is wild, and then you get Darling starts his magic.
You almost sit there on your couch or in your seat at MSG, and it's almost like you can almost feel that point where the switch gets flipped and they're starting the run. You can feel it. And then when it's happening, it's almost like it's unstoppable. And credit to Xavier. They came back a lot in this game. They were hitting shots, as we mentioned, fadeaway threes, step back threes, shots on the baseline. I don't know how these shots went in, but they did. But St. John's took the punch and punched right back. It was like punch, counter punch type of a thing. I don't know if this is the kind of game that you want game in and game out, but it is the kind of thing that separates decent teams or good teams from great teams. Great teams have the ability to withstand a run and just impose their dominance because of athleticism or just basketball ability. And that's what you're seeing. And so 6 games, it's been a while since they've lost a basketball game. And I say that because it's almost like the whole season turned around with that Providence loss. We keep going back to that game. There's a reason why I'm wearing a black. You're pointing to it right now. There's a reason why I'm wearing black, and I'm not taking it off until they lose. And I swear to you, I hope I keep wearing it deep into April. But the reality is, you can feel it. It's palpable. And I'm sure the players feel it too. But now there's a quiet confidence as well, which is something they didn't have earlier in the season. Earlier in the season, they would be up and they would blow these leads. Now you're starting to see St. John's feel as if nothing is insurmountable. And so it's okay. We're down 10, we're down 12, we're down 15. Let's go win this basketball game.
Just in the Seton Hall game, we said, well, there's not going to be many teams that can defend that way. And for St. John's to win facing that kind of defense was really commendable. And I believe I even said it with Roger and Kevin, who did make it home safe back in one day. It was for them, so I'm sure everybody's thrilled about that. But we said that there's probably no other team that can defend like Seton Hall besides maybe UConn, who has really turned up their defense as well. On the flip side, how many other teams can score at that clip the way that Xavier scored against St. John's yesterday? Probably only UConn, right? So it's very obvious, and I say that with saying that UConn's offense is reeling right now, as well as Seton Hall, who just lost to DePaul and is on a 4-game losing streak. It's just very interesting that these two wins have come against two teams that do two things remarkably well. I believe Xavier has the second best offense in the league besides St. John's, but they are a dynamic scoring team. It's just very interesting that St. John's, again, is proving that they can win multiple ways. And the two teams that they've gone up against, it's been such a juxtaposition on what they're going to face the rest of the year, because I don't think they're going to be up against an offense really like that besides UConn. And I don't think they're going to be up against a defense like that, kind of like UConn. So, hey, February 6th is coming.
And you want to be able to beat teams in different ways, and you want to be able to beat teams that have different, skill sets, because you don't know what you're going to get come March Madness. You just don't know. St. John's has played big teams. They played athletic teams. They played teams that can run. They can play teams that shut you down on defense, and they can play teams that score the ball efficiently. So you want to really be a team that's battle tested, and that's something Rick always turns to. I want my teams battle tested. I don't want them to see anything new come NCAA tournament time, and that's what you're seeing with this team. One guy we have not talked a ton about in this game is Bryce Hopkins, and I want to go back to him for a second because he has been a bit of an enigma this season, absolutely playing much better basketball as of late. This game, 18 points, 7 of 17 from the field, 1 of 3 from deep, 8 rebounds, a steal, no turnovers, and he had the ball in his hands a lot. So credit to him. Do you want to talk about Bryce Hopkins's performance and his impact on this game? Because with the way that the Dillons have been playing, I don't want to overshadow Bryce Hopkins's performance because he had some big shots deep into the second half.
Aggression. Justin, in this 6 games since Providence, we have seen Bryce Hopkins become aggressive. In the second half, he was, again, going to the rim. He was getting rebounds. I think he had 6 rebounds in the second half. And then he hit the 3, which was always, we've always been talking about how he's hesitant on shooting the 3. He hits 1 3. Bryce Hopkins has been as, if not, more impactful and instrumental than Dillon Mitchell. I mean, Dillon Darling also, but I mean, that leads me to a bigger point is those are the 3 guys. Those have been the 3 guys who have been so huge in stepping up with Zubie Ejiofor, obviously. But Bryce Hopkins, you heard me say about Mitchell in the 2 games. Bryce Hopkins in the last 2 games, 31 points, 16 rebounds, 5 assists. He's been incredible. He hasn't let that Providence game linger. Now, February 14th is coming with a return trip to Providence on Valentine's Day. Very curious what his response is going to be. But, man, the way that he's playing, I think he's going to have something for him. Everything changes for this team, for this offense, when Bryce Hopkins is aggressive. And there was a moment in that second half where St. John's goes on that 17-6 run. Darling hits that 3 where he kind of shuffles his feet. And I know Xavier fans were pissed off that they missed that travel call.
I noticed that as well, but I'm not going to say anything about the calls because the St. John's got some awful calls against them just the same.
Right. And Hopkins right after that went to the rim. He has been a different guy, and Rick's asked him to play that way. And he's answered the call.
My one knock, and this is because I guess, much like Pitino, I guess I'm demanding perfection. He was only 7 of 17 from the field. He missed a lot of bunnies or easier shots that you kind of hoped he had hit. And so I don't want to.
Especially in the first half.
He did. And even in the early part of the second half, but he was great down the stretch. I love the aggression. He has been a difference maker for this team. He is somebody that St. John's needs to be a difference maker. I just want to see him convert a little more efficiently down low.
I agree with you, but 6 of 14 against Villanova, 4 of 13 against Seton Hall. You'll take, I think, 7 of 17 most of the time. 6 of 14, 4 of 13 against Villanova and Seton Hall. 2 not great shooting performances from the floor, but he went to the line 10 times against Villanova, made 8. He went to the line 6 times against Seton Hall, made 5. In this one, he went to the line 5 times, made 3. So he has done a good job of supplementing, obviously, the misses with going to the line, and he's been one of the better free throw shooters on this team this year. So I will give him a touch of a pass on that sense. But 7 of 17 from the floor, it's 41%. You kind of want to get that to 50%, obviously. But he makes a 3, which I think just helps raise the ceiling on what he can do. And the other thing, and again, we've talked about this all season, he played 37 minutes. And Justin, he added 8 rebounds. So he's finally rebounding the ball like his old self. 10 rebounds against Georgetown, 10 rebounds against Providence. Then he had 4 and 4 against Creighton, 8 rebounds against Marquette, 6 against Villanova, 8 against Seton Hall, 8 against Xavier. He's starting to really become aggressive on the glass, and he's becoming aggressive getting to the rim, which is helping him get to the line.
His comfort level is palpably higher. He feels comfortable in the system. He knows his role. He knows that Rick is not going to be screaming at him if he's out of position on one play. And if he is getting screamed at, it's just because he's getting coached up to a level that maybe he has never seen in the past. And again, I criticize the bunnies because I just see
but they're frustrating.
it's frustrating to see as a fan, but I don't for a second minimize everything he has done to help during this winning streak, and especially the last three games, as you pointed out. But just imagine if
And
his
Justin, just to further your point, I mean, St. John's missed 10 layups, actual layups, and that's not even, we're talking about the up close shots as
yep,
well
yep.
that don't count as a quote unquote layup. So that's just 10 missed layups yesterday against Xavier and even more up close. So yeah, it's obviously very frustrating.
But if he hits those shots, or we start converting on these, bunnies, as I like to call them, I mean, we're blowing everybody out at that point. So it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying, if you tighten it up just a little bit, I don't know that you've even seen the best that Bryce has to offer. Because listen, I'll take 18 and 8 from Bryce Hopkins every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I just want to see it tighten it up a little bit, because maybe 18 and 8 turns into 22 and 8.
I want to touch on the man with the biggest cojones in New York. 7 minutes left in the game. And Dylan Darling, I mentioned it, he was just a calming presence. It changes the way that the flow of a game goes, and you're still scoring, you're still punch counter punch, but just Darling was able to really calm things down. The step back three I mentioned about Trey Carroll over Ruben Prey made it 79-77 with a St. John's lead. Then Messina Moore gets a crafty one-handed layup to the rim. He was really good against St. John's, one of the better scorers in the conference as well. But Dylan Darling answered it right back. Messina Moore makes that layup, and the game's just kind of teetering on the road. This is a big moment. Darling answers it. He kind of hits hyperdrive. We haven't really seen that speed from Darling. Keep talking about him being a little undersized. He's not as athletic. And in this big moment, he just hits the Jets, left-handed layup. Borovichinen on the other end answers with a layup of his own and one. That's the fifth foul on Zubie. Zubie didn't even freaking touch him, in my opinion. Rick after the game said that he did. I don't know, man. I watched it a few times. That was awful. Then we got the awful call of the goaltend that was not called. That it was a shot clock violation. These refs were horrific. But that Borovichinen layup tied the game at 81. Then he hits the free throw to give them the lead. The crowd's going nuts. And what does Dylan Darling do? Give me the damn ball. And he hits Messina Moore with a sick ankle-breaking crossover. Who's not athletic? Who can hit those sick moves? He looked like Allen Iverson out there. He hit a crossover and hits a three right in his face to give St. John's an 84-82 lead. And then the turning point was that on the other end, Trey Carroll went to the rim, throws a bad shot up. It goes over the back. Darling drives on the other end, and then Ruben Prey kind of out of nowhere, off balanced as he usually is, flopping around, gets the tip in 86-82 with 12 seconds left. Hopkins makes two free throws, and the game ends 88-83. Justin, Dylan Darling, when the time comes, has simply welcomed the moment. St. John's outscores Xavier 51-34 in the second half. And Dylan Darling was just unbelievable. Here's Rick on the great team performance. He talks about Bryce and Ian as well as Dylan.
I've said this all along to you guys all year long, how enjoyable they are. But tonight was the icing on the cake, because a lot of teams would break down 12, down 10, and they never broke. They just stayed with it. Dylan Darling's, he's got balls as big as church bells. I mean, it's unbelievable. Bryce Hopkins made big plays. Ian kept us in the game in the first half. So it was a great team performance.
Justin, I can't talk about this guy enough. I can't talk about what stepping up on the road in that kind of a moment means. I can't talk about enough when you've been sitting on the bench and you're playing about 28 minutes. But he was called upon in the big moments on the road. He was called upon against Seton Hall. His shot was awful up until that Iona game. And then what happens? Dillon Darling becomes the best 3-point shooter in the freaking Big East. He's unbelievable. Rick Pitino's a wizard, and all it had to do was put some more arc on the shot
Yeah, I mean, he said he was going to work with him, and work with him he did.
for 2 days.
Listen, he's been known to fix the shot or two in his day, and he certainly seems to have fixed Darling's. But what was, I think, most impressive to me was two things. Number one, he was called on to play big minutes in the second half. He did not seem tired at all. His stamina and his ability to play hard for basically the entire second half, or the second half of the second half anyway, should not be something that we should sleep on, because, again, a guy who played at Idaho State, not known for playing high D1 basketball, it certainly took him some time to get acclimated to the speed and toughness of the Big East. But now he seems like he's not only comfortable, but thriving. And I wanted to point out, forget the threes for a second, although those onions on those threes, those
Church
three
bells.
Yes, church bells. Onions, church bells. I like it all. Those 3 rebounds were game-changing rebounds by Dillon Darling. If Dillon Darling does not come up with those rebounds and Xavier gets an offensive board, St. John's loses this game.
His rebounding in general has ticked up, but it's that gutsiness. Like, it's that just typical gutsiness from a guy that has probably been told he's too small his whole life playing this high level basketball. Has always been told that, how's he going to compete with these guys that are bigger than him or more athletic, and everything that we said about, oh, can you step up in competition? Can you play at this level? 3 assists, 3 rebounds against Seton Hall, 3 rebounds. So yeah, he's not going to fill it up in that category, but he's going to fight for him. And I think it just sends such a message to the rest of the team that when you got a guy playing his ass off like that, when his church bells are on display for the entire world to see, you want to raise your game to the next level. Here's Rick Pitino talking about Dillon Darling and how he's thriving in these late game moments.
Yeah, he's not afraid to take over, and that's the sign of a great point guard. He's not afraid to take over. Step back 3, drive to the rim, make plays. I tell you what's impressive is the way he goes for the rebounds inside. I mean, he goes after the ball, so he's very impressive.
Justin, I mean, I don't know how much more there is to say about Dillon Darling, Bryce Hopkins, and Dillon Mitchell, because they have been so incredible to St. John's in these 6 games. I think Dillon Mitchell, like you mentioned, is certainly coming into his own. And I'm curious now. We've got this sample size of 6 games. We've got a 15-5 record for St. John's. They're 8-1 in the Big East. Given how they have played over this 6-game winning streak, and especially these last 2 that are such gutsy and gritty comeback wins, what is your level of confidence in this team moving forward and into March?
I am taking everything one game at a time. We as St. John's fans
sound like Zubie Ejiofor.
We do. Listen, I've heard worse. We do not have the luxury to look ahead to March at this point, because there are 2 games in front of us before the next real big test. Beat Butler at home. And by the way, don't fall behind 15 against Butler. How about just a comfortable 12 to 15 point win on your home court? How about that for a change? But beat Butler. I don't care if you escape DePaul with a 1-point win. Don't lose to DePaul on the road. I've seen that happen before. I don't want to see it again. I will let you know where this team stands come March on February 7th. Because on February 7th, I'll have had a chance to digest that UConn game. And to me, win or lose, you're going to get a real sense as to how good this team is. Because, again, these comebacks are great, but we're not playing teams that are going to be dancing in March. So I can't tell you where this team is. The next barometer game is Madison Square Garden, February 6th. against a team that right now looks like they should be in a Final Four.
Justin, Rick Pitino gets win number 900. He gets doused in Gatorade and water. It was a really cool scene at the end of the game in the locker room. He tells Andy Katz that, hey, Rick Pitino was asked, what's next after 900, and he said 1,000. So, hey, perhaps Rick Pitino is going to be sticking around to get 100 more wins. We could only hope. But did you know that if St. John's does what you just said and doesn't drop the Butler home game and doesn't drop the road game against DePaul, that Rick Pitino, who just passed Bob Knight with 900, will potentially pass Roy Williams against Xavier again on 2-9 if they could also knock off UConn on 2-6.
I mean, Rick Pitino has a way of being very poetic with things, and I think that this would be extremely poetic. I will say this, if they beat UConn on 2-6, and it's an if, I'm not taking that game lightly for anything. If they beat UConn on 2-6, they will murder Xavier at home, and you will see Rick Pitino just put another notch under his illustrious belt that he is honed over the last, close to 50 years now as a college basketball coach. I, again, am not looking ahead to that. He will obviously win that momentous game at some point this year. I just want to see them win 2 more basketball games going into that UConn game, because that really is going to show you the ceiling potentially for this team. Think about it. If they get blown out by UConn, this entire run of what will ultimately probably be 8 games is going to be a little bit of a punch in the mouth.
You lose some of that wind in your sails a little bit.
You do. Not that
the
season's over,
but a little
bit.
But
you lose something. You do.
Yeah. Justin, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, if you beat UConn, you're starting to think crazy again. And so just let's see where it goes.
Justin, I want to kind of put a bow on things with just quickly touching on Zubie Ejiofor and what it means kind of for the entire team and then just the rest of the season. In these last 2 games, Zubie Ejiofor has had 4 fouls against Seton Hall and 5 against Xavier. Against Seton Hall, he had 9 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. He played 27 minutes. Against Xavier, he had 13 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, 3 steals, but he fouled out and played 31 minutes. He was 5 of 9 from the floor, 5 of 9 from the free throw line. Rick Pitino, after the game, said that Zubie's efforts in general have rubbed off on everybody. Let's listen to Rick first.
Pretty amazing that it's happening with really other people than Zubie. I think it's contagious. Zubie's enthusiasm, Zubie's toughness is really flowing over to the other guys. It's flowing over to Bryce, Dillon, the 2 Dillons. It's great to see.
Justin, what does it say about this team that Zubie Ejiofor, who forever this season has been looked at as the guy that makes everything go, that the turning point in the season was that they started feeding him the ball a little bit more. And in 2 games where he doesn't have to be the alpha anymore, this team not only can grit it back with defense, where he's also one of the better defensive players on the team, that they could do it without him on the floor as much, but they could also do it on the offensive end as well.
When they started going to Zubie Ejiofor inside, the entire tenor of this team changed completely. And even though he's been in foul trouble, they're showing you that they can win without him, which I wasn't sure that they had the ability to do even going into the season. I thought he was that important to this team, and I don't want to minimize Ruben Prey's 9 minutes. Not only did he hit the big basket to essentially seal this win down the stretch, but he played a really tough 9 minutes, as he often does. He gives you everything when he's out on the floor. But Zubie Ejiofor and his 6 offensive rebounds were another key feature of this game. They do not win this game without Zubie Ejiofor helping St. John's get second chance points, especially in the second half. Xavier had no answer for him down low. Seton Hall had no answer for him down low. He is an X factor that very few teams can match up with. But that being said, It's extremely nice to see them win, even when Zubie may not be playing his absolute best game of the year, because again, it's showing you that they can beat you in many different ways. But I think that you're going to see Zubie not pick up these fouls going forward. He's playing good defense. And if the refs are going to call a tight game like that, there's nothing you can do about that.
It's funny, after the game, Dillon Mitchell said he's been talking to Zubie, telling him, you got to stop fouling. We need you on the court. I found that funny. Few more quick hitters about this game that are important as we wrap up. Calvin Odie has gotten some more minutes over the last few games. He played 5 minutes in this one, had a layup. Rick Pitino said that he's earned some more minutes. It's time for him to start playing because of his defense and rebounding. That's going to be something interesting to watch throughout the next few games. My panic meter and concern meter with Josan Sanin is at an incredibly high level. He is not an effective basketball player right now. And I can argue that he is hurting St. John's more than he is helping for the majority of the time that he is on the floor. Yeah, he's had a few moments where he has made some good shots and big shots. Against Villanova, he had some big shots. Against Seton Hall, he had a few big shots. But overall, over the last 8 or so games, Josan Sanin has been struggling, and I don't think is the type of player that we thought we were getting here at St. John's. Oziah Sellers, 7 points in this one, 5 in the second half. Again, he's been kind of up and down last few games, but he's hit some big shots. The and one in the second half was huge during the run. So Oziah, who is playing a lot, he's playing a lot of minutes in these games. He's relied upon as a secondary ball handler. So just an interesting performance. But just overall, Justin, in that second half, St. John's gets 26 points in the paint. They got Xavier turned over 12 times. Those offensive rebounds you talked about led to 14 second chance points. And again, it was just a huge, huge performance by the Johnnies in that second half. 51 points in the half helps everything for sure. They out-rebounded Xavier 21-10. They out-rebounded them 9-3 on the offensive glass, 12-7 on the defensive glass. Second chance points was 14-0. Bench points was 13-0 in favor of St. John's. Points in the paint was 26-12 in favor of St. John's. So all of that is a recipe for how you win 88-83. Any final thoughts from you as we look forward to Butler in 3 days? St. John's and Butler will be playing one more time. Johnny's got the 84-70 win on the road on January 6th.
I'll keep it short and sweet for a change. You have not seen this team play their best basketball yet, and that's a frightening proposition when you have the ability to come back and score 51 points on the road against a team that may not be great defensively, but was up big in this game. The best is yet to come. Let's see what they do against Butler.
St. John's improves to 15-5 and 8-1 in the Big East. Rick Pitino gets win number 4 over his son Richard, and it was for number 900. Take a bow, Rick Pitino. St. John's fans, we are absolutely blessed and lucky to have him leading the Red Storm. Phenomenal win. Back-to-back, amazing performances by St. John's. Red Storm fans, you should be feeling yourselves. You should be riding high. The Red Storm get an 88-83 win over Xavier on the road. They get 2 more quad 2 wins this week. They pick up a lot of momentum heading into Monday's AP poll refresh. Could they have a number next to their name on Monday at 1 o'clock? I think so. I know Justin thinks so. Johnny's back in the spotlight and doing it with defense, doing it with gruts, doing it with church bells. That's the Johnny's way. He's Justin Kramer. Thank you so much for listening. Johnny Nation. Catch you next time.